the most of the publishers have problems with their content published. They work with different content published during the last year, and they publish about all the categories of the world. They publish about COVID, they publish about health, about something more sexual, football, politics, everything. And we need to focus on which type and which category is our core product.
Hello and welcome to Fix It, the podcast by the Fix Media, where we unpack media insights and take you behind the scenes of editorial decisions, strategy, and innovation. I'm your host Anton Protsiuk, senior editor of the Fix Media. Before we dive in, please subscribe, follow, and if you like what you hear, support us at thefix.media. Welcome to the Fixes podcast. Today I'm happy to speak with Clara Soteras, who is one of the most interesting experts on the topic of SEO for news publishers. We will talk about the biggest trends in SEO today, the impact of AI, and of course, the huge role that Google Discover plays in this ecosystem. Clara, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Anton, for having me here and for inviting me on the podcast that, well, I listen every week.
Great, that's exciting. So let's start with a big question. How has SEO for news publishers changed over the past couple of years? So how does the landscape look like in 2026 compared to, for example, 2023?
Well, I think that SEO is changing a lot during the last months, and probably something that changed the reality of the publishers is the launch of AI overviews, because probably well, we don't have so much traffic from LLMs, only 0.02% of traffic, but we are losing traffic from search because of AI overviews. And well, something that we are seeing here is the most affected content is niche content or evergreen content, because in breaking news, we can work and we can rank on top stories for that moment, no, and obviously we can work on trends and try to be and to appear in Discover. But in another way, in Discover, we need to take into account that we are losing opportunities as a publishers, because content creators and YouTube and posts from Twitter are appearing on the feed. So for this reason, well, we need to change a lot our focus on SEO, and I am trying to evangelize this change of mindset, and that we need to change the KPI and avoid to talk about page views and unique users, and start to work with different KPIs and with different metrics that lets us understand how is performing our authority or our expertise.
So let's talk a bit more about AI overuse and their impact. You've already mentioned that they impacted especially publishers that work on evergreen content. Can you expand a bit more about that? Who has stood to benefit most from AI overuse and who has lost the most from AI overuse?
Yes, well, the evergreen content or the niche publishers are the most affected. So, for example, technology sites are really affected, and they are losing a lot of traffic from different evergreen content. But something that I am trying to work with different publishers like this is that catching the trend, create content, focus on their product, but catching the trend of the day and knowing about the events that will be in the calendar, talking about the social conversation, and trying to appear there to catch and to have the opportunity to appear on Discover, for example, or in top stories. And another type of thing that we need to think is to change the formats and the products that we offer. So we can offer now the response of how to do a screenshot in Mac because it's something that AI Overviews is responding now. So we need to change and offer this different type of product or content and creating value for audience. AI Overviews is the real change.
And have you seen some specific examples of publishers who have adapted to the arrival of AI overviews and changed?
Well, I think that the publishers who works in general information um, have the opportunity to work in different categories. No, the niche sites needs to change and create products. So, for example, not only focus on SEO. They need to create community. They need to create brand awareness to be more in the mind of the audience and to increase the opportunities to be well known by new people, no? And for this reason, for example, we have the opportunity to try and to choose which publishers we want to have in our top stories. It's not launched in all the countries, but Google starts to launch this feature in United States, for example, and now you can choose which publishers you want to read on top stories. So for this reason, it's not only a work related with SEO, but in terms of AI overviews, something that I'm trying to do is catching the trend and creating different product and different approaches with the trends of the day. For this reason, you need to create volume. It doesn't work if you only publish one article per day, but for me, it's really interesting to create a strategy of entities to work and run well on Discover and search. And for example, if you analyze the performance of your authors on Discover, you can learn that, for example, one author has a better performance on fragrances, for example, and the other colleague has better performance related when she talks about fashion, for example, no? And for this reason, you can create and can choose different entities that can be brands, that can be celebrities or cities and topics, no? And you can work and try to create this strategy of consistency, of publish every day something related with this category or this entity.
And this is a strategy for Google Discover, right? Not for search or for both.
Well, for me now it's for both, no, but it's more focused on Discover. For search now it's you need to work with breaking news. Um, Work on breaking news or analyze which type of searches are not responded by AI overviews and try to be there. But obviously, for me, it's good and great strategy to try to appear on top stories.
So let's talk a bit more about Google Discover, right? It plays such a huge role in the news ecosystem. It's such a huge driver of traffic in a lot of markets. I think that your data shows that some countries are especially among the top markets on Discover. For example, Croatia, Poland, Ukraine. What do you think is driving that? Is there something that publishers in those countries are doing well, or is it more about the penetration of Google products in those countries?
Well, it's something related more or less with with the iOS market versus the Android market. For example, in United States, the share of market, and we have more devices, more Apple devices, and in Europe, Latin America, and Australia, we have more Android devices. For this reason, Google Discover is integrated, the searcher of the feed of Google Discover is integrated in Android devices, and we have more opportunities to have this type of audience here. And something related with this is that obviously publishers are really focused on creating content for this feed. And well, nowadays we have a lot of volatility here. And in February 2026, Google launched the core update focused only on Google Discover, but it was only launched on United States. But we need to see how it can evolve here in the rest of the world and the rest of the countries. But something that I'm seeing in Discover, because I am trying to analyze in every core update that we have, is that the visibility of domains like YouTube or Twitter um, is growing. So for this reason, we need to change the mind and the strategy to work for Discover. And for example, what I am seeing is that some publishers, so some categories can show only, for example, YouTube videos like sports, for example, performs really well audiovisual content on Discover. And obviously, if you are a publisher that you want to rank sports content, but you don't work in audiovisual content, it will be impossible to appear there. So we need to understand which type of category is promoting more in every format in Google Discover.
And let's talk a bit more about some specific tips for publishers who would like to get better at Google Discover. You've mentioned already some of them. So, for example, the focus on entities rather than keywords, right? Maybe you can give a few more pieces of advice for publishers who are specifically want to get better at Discover.
For me, there are a lot of factors of ranking, but there are two main factors of ranking that we need to take into account. It's the headline, and here I want to mention that the headline, uh, everybody talks about clickbait, no? But for me, it's not a real clickbait. It's a real clickbait if you talk about the day of the end of the world, and obviously inside you can explain that, no, you can justify that. But if you create a headline with a curiosity gap, for me it's not clickbait, because obviously you are a journalist, and you are working with creativity, and you needs to work with these type of things, no. And in the other hand, the second thing that I can mention is the image. For me, the image is really important, and sometimes is the last thing that a journalist or a content writer adds to the article. And well, obviously, they are finishing the article and they want to finish the work, but it's a huge part of the content and with a lot of importance. So we need to stop and decide which type of images we want to put there, because the feed on the feed of Discover, it's really focused on the card and the image that we can see there. So it's super important what we want to show and what we want to not show in the image. For example, if we are talking about the last product that um, some brand launch in the market, we can put we can put there the product, because if we are showing and we are trying to hidden the name of the product in the headline, but we show in the image, it doesn't make sense. So This is an example, for example, no? And well, this is the two most important factors for me. Another things that we are seeing that performs really well is to work on locations, and it's something that Google explains in the last information about the latest core update focus on discover, that they want to focus on avoiding clickbait and reducing it, but always thinking about promoting local publishers and local content focus for the audience. And well, I think that it's something that we are seeing that is changing, because we in every feed from Spain or from UK or from Croatia, we saw Indian Times, for example, and it's not based in here, no, but now we are seeing more local publishers and more local content creators, for example. And I think that mentioning the city and the region in the headline can help to impact this audience. And creating a strategy with local opportunities could work really well nowadays. And well, something that I can mention more what this question is obviously the working with entities and the reiteration of the consistency to publish every day with the same entities to work on your authority for the eyes of the of Google. And well, obviously the trends you need to talk about the social conversation topics and to be in the conversation, because it's the evergreen content, it's not performing well on that. And these are the main points. Obviously we can work with more, but these are the key points.
There is a lot of very practical advice here. I'm sure people will benefit from that. Continuing on the point of advice for publishers, but let's step back. So if, for example, a mid-sized European publisher came to you tomorrow and said that they would like to improve their SEO practices, but not like very specific advice about discover or search, just like 2 or 3 very general steps of what they can do to improve their approach to SEO, what would be your advice?
Well, my advice will be firstly ask which type of publisher is, because we need to analyze which type of publisher. It's a niche site. It's it's a small publisher in a city. It's a huge publisher. How is performing their search channel and their discover channel? I need to analyze the publishers before to give some advice. But something that I want to say to the publishers is that we can have technical problems and we can analyze it. And if a publisher asks me tomorrow, I need to analyze which type of publisher, obviously, but we need to analyze how is their website. No, uh, we can have technical problems that blocks from the index of Google and core web vitals and schema and sitemaps, for example. This is something that we can work easily, I think, nowadays, because the other problem that I am detecting today is that the most of the publishers have problems with their content published. They work with different content published during the last year, and they publish about all the categories of the world. They publish about COVID, they publish about health, about something more sexual, football, politics, everything. And we need to focus on which type and which category is our core product. And something that I am trying to evangelize and explain to the publishers that have this problem is that, okay, we need to erase 50% of the content. Well, and they think, wow, you are crazy. And I try to analyze which type of URLs I show with them. No, this is the URLs that I want to erase, that I want to eliminate from your website, in order to perform better the new articles. And something that we are seeing is that, well, publishers don't know that they have published this type of content, no? For example, something related with sexual or psychology that you don't have some medical recommendations and experts, no? And they told me, okay, yes, we can erase it.
So basically, to summarize, the first point of advice is to figure out all this technical but important stuff about discoverability. And then the second point of advice is to find your specialization and maybe reduce the amount of content you publish if necessary.
Yes, this is not the second answer. No, this is not the answer that I give always. No, but we need to check different, for example, different technical things like, okay, schema, how is implemented that, sitemaps, index, core vitals. Okay, we have this more or less. There are basic things for news, and okay, I analyze that the visibility and the evolution of the visibility for the domain, and I detect obviously when we have core updates if this was affected, for example, for the helpful content update in 2023, or if they are affected with the last spam update, or because you can see a huge and drastic drop. So for this reason, if they don't change, for example, or they didn't decide to migrate or to change the CMS, well, we need to have this clear too, and have this information for the context. But we can work and we can learn and understand why this. The publisher is dropping on that moment, no, and what we need to change, and which type of things we need to change. But something that I am seeing now is the most important problem that we have in a lot of publishers is the content published, the quality of the content, not only for sexual things, for example, or for talking about different categories, but for example, if they have a lot of thin content, no, short articles, um, this is a problem too.
So let's talk about a bit different topic. There is a lot of talk about generative engine optimization, right? Optimization of content for AI chatbots. And I'm actually not sure, is it a whole special discipline or is it just plain good old SEO, which can be also applied for indexing by AI chatbots? What are your thoughts there? Are there any very specific things that publishers need to do to be indexed by AI chatbots, but maybe not necessarily by traditional search tools?
Well, for me, GEO it's something that it's basic SEO, but we need obviously the factors of ranking or the percentage of these factors change a little bit. Yes, but in their basic things are the same, no? Because obviously we need to work with quality content, we need to work with good core web vitals, and perform well in some technical part, and resolve technical issues. And something that is changing with Geo, I think that we need to be more focused on authority and on the schema, and creating these signals of consistency. For example, I want to mention that we have profiles on Discover for the publishers or for creators, and the profile on Discover, every it's like the knowledge panel, and the knowledge panel understands um, that the website is related with the social account in TikTok and the social account in Instagram and Twitter and YouTube. So we need to create this consistency related with the publisher and with a creator, no, to work on that. And probably for me, the schema is has a lot of importance because you can use it to create is with the same as, for example, when we have an author in a website, in a publisher, or when we need to relate the author with their professional networks, social networks, and in a publisher, the same, no? We need to create this consistency with the news article schema, the live blog posting schema, video, but working with the news media organization schema for being an authority in other platforms. Well, other thing that I can mention here is that we can work with better structured articles with different age to and different titles and different parts and paragraph to explain a little bit more and help Google to understand which type of information you can find there. Obviously, we are seeing that list articles rank really well for this, but we need to understand, and it's something that that I talk and I debate, discuss a lot with publishers and directors, is that we only have 0.02% traffic from ChatGPT to publishers. This is not the focus for our traffic, no? But if we want to be mentioned, and this will be the next KPI that we need to search probably, is that we need to work on that, and we can create this authority and to be understand as a reference for this topic.
It's a good point that AI chatbots are a very small source of traffic, but there are a lot of hypotheses that they would grow. And here is when I wanted to ask you about some overall trends for the future couple of years. What do you think what do you think are some potential trends that publishers should prepare in the coming years?
Well, I don't have the way to see the future, no, but I'm trying uh, to put my head in the next 2 years, and I think that nowadays we have this small traffic from LLMs, and I don't think that in the next 2 years this traffic change a lot, this percentage change a lot, because we are, as every technology or as every gadget, now we need some time to introduce in our behavior that probably people who works on media or in technology will enter faster to this the use of this, but the standard user um, more time. Well, we need to monitor the evolution of this, but the 0.02% of traffic is something that we have now from ChatGPT, for example, and we need to understand how we can work now with SEO, because search and discover are the main channel of traffic. It's not Google's zero, it's not a reality, no? We need to work on that. And in the next years, probably this percentage will increase, obviously, but we will need to work on understanding the behavior of the user. Why? Because probably they not only will use ChatGPT or Perplexity, they will search, and people are searching on TikTok or on YouTube or on Instagram, depending on the search and their needs. If they want to buy something, probably they will go to Google. But if they want to see the latest trend about the recipe, they can go to TikTok or they can go to Instagram. No, and we need to understand what what are doing and how is the behavior of the user to understand the next future.
And one final question, where can people learn more about these topics? I know that you recently published a book about SEO for publishers. Tell us more about that and any other ways to either benefit from the work you're doing or just overall learn more about the topics we discussed today.
Yes, well, I published this book months ago, and well, it's a book that probably you can say a book about SEO for news, a printed book, yes, because it's a book that you have different chapters and different approaches to work on technical and basic things. Google Discover, we have two chapters about Discover, no, how we need to understand the feed and how we can evangelize SEO inside the newsroom, because I think that it's really important, the soft skills that I work in different newsrooms, and well, the newsroom are really different, and you need to understand the knowledge that every journalist have in the newsroom. Well, the book is printed on digital version, and it's yes, it's prepared for journalists, for a director of strategy. It's a little book to put SEO in practice in the newsroom, written to be understood by every journalist.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us, Clara.
Well, thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure, and well, nice to see you again.
That's all for today. Thank you for being with us. Follow The Fix, subscribe to Fixit, and if you want to help us grow, then head over to thefix.media and become a member.